Germany's Leopard 2 main combat tank has an immense reputation for being one of the best in the world, vying with cutting-edge designs like the American M1 Abrams and the British Challenger 2. This reputation seems to be invincible because of its heroic contribution to previous wars. Yes, Leopard 2 tank is a matter to be bothered about in war for the rivals. But why is this tank so impressive? What makes it so powerful on the battlefield? In today's episode, we will discuss why the world fears the German Leopard 2 tank. The Leopard 2 is frequently contrasted with the M1 Abrams, a close relative of the Leopard 2. In reality, the two designs have many similarities, including a scale-tipping weight of well over 60 tons of advanced composite armor, 1,500 horsepower engines that enable speeds over 40 miles per hour, and for some models, the same 44 caliber 120mm main gun made by Rheinmetall. At medium and long ranges, where they are unlikely to be pierced by return fire from typical 125mm guns, both types can easily kill the majority of Russian-built tanks. Additionally, they have better sights with stronger thermal imagers and magnification, increasing their chances of spotting and hitting the opponent first, a factor that, historically, has determined the winner of an armored battle more so than pure firepower. In a Greek trial, it was discovered that moving Leopard 2s and Abrams hit a 2.3-meter target 19 and 20 times out of 20, compared to only 11 hits for a Soviet T-80. The minor distinctions between the two Western tanks show various national ideologies. The Leopard 2 has a diesel engine that gives it more range before refueling, whereas the Abrams has a noisy, gas-guzzling turbine that produces 1,500 horsepower and starts up more quickly. Some of the Abrams' remarkable offensive and defensive capabilities were made possible by the use of depleted uranium ammunition and armor packages, which are politically unpalatable to the Germans. To make up for this decrease in penetrating capability, newer versions of the Leopard 2A6 now mount a faster 55 caliber gun, while the 2A5 Leopard added an extra wedge of spaced armor to the turret to better deflect opposing fire. German export limitations are more stringent than those of France, the United States, or Russia, at least in comparison to Berlin, which places fewer constraints on which nation it will sell weapons to. Despite the Leopard 2 being in service with 18 nations, including many NATO members, Berlin turned down a lucrative Saudi request for 400 to 800 Leopard 2s due to the Middle Eastern nation's human rights abuses, specifically in its deadly conflict in Yemen. Instead, the Saudis added more Abrams to their fleet of about 400 vehicles. This brings us to Turkey, a NATO member with significant historical and economic ties to Berlin. Turkey has seen periods of military rule and has long engaged in a contentious counterinsurgency campaign against Kurdish rebels. Early in the new millennium, Berlin sold 354 of its retired Leopard 2A4 tanks to Ankara in an environment with more favorable political conditions. These marked a significant improvement over the M60 Patton tanks that make up the majority of Turkey's armored troops and offer inferior protection. But there has long been a suspicion that Berlin only consented to the sale if Turkish counterinsurgency operations against the Kurds did not involve German tanks. Whether such an agreement existed is fiercely debated, but the Leopard 2 was nonetheless deployed in northern Turkey, across from Russia, far from the Kurdish war. But the 2nd Armored Brigade's Turkish Leopard 2s finally made their way to the Syrian border in the fall of 2016 to help Operation Euphrates Shield, Turkey's operation against ISIS. Around a dozen Turkish Patton tanks had been wrecked by ISIS and Kurdish missiles before the Leopard arrived. Turkish defense analysts voiced optimism about how much better the harder Leopard would perform. The Leopard 2A4 model, the last of the Cold War-era Leopard 2s, was not built to withstand IEDs and missiles fired by ambushing insurgents in long-term counterinsurgency campaigns, where every single loss was a political issue, but rather to fight in relatively concentrated units in a quick defensive war against Soviet tank columns. In a counterinsurgency setting, when an attack could come from any direction, the 2A4 retains an outdated, boxy turret shape that offers less protection from current anti-tank missiles, especially to the normally more vulnerable rear and side armor. This was horrifyingly highlighted in December 2016, when it became clear that many Leopard 2s had been destroyed in fierce combat over Al-Bab, which was held by ISIS. According to Der Spiegel, Turkish military authorities described the battle as a, quote, horror. According to a document that was made public online, ISIS is believed to have destroyed 10 of the Leopard 2s, 5 of which were purportedly destroyed by anti-tank missiles, 2 by mines or IEDs, 1 by rocket or mortar fire, and the others by reasons that are less clear. These images demonstrate that at least 8 were destroyed. One depicts an apparent suicide V-Bide, an armored kamikaze truck loaded with explosives, knocking out a Leopard 2. Another had its turret destroyed. Near Al-Bab, 3 Leopard wrecks may be observed, together with several other Turkish armored vehicles. It appears that IEDs, AT-7 Matisse and AT-5 Conquer's anti-tank missiles primarily hit the vehicle's less protective side and belly armor. Undoubtedly, the casualties were likely caused by how the Turkish army used the German tanks. They were placed in the back as long-range fire support weapons, while Turkish allied Syrian militias hardened, and Turkish special forces led the attacks, as opposed to being used in a combined arms force alongside mutually supporting soldiers. The Turkish Leopards were open to ambushes because they were alone on exposed fire positions without enough adjacent infantry to build a strong defensive perimeter. As you can see in this video, the same subpar strategies contributed to the loss of multiple Saudi Abrams tanks in Yemen. In contrast, more recent Leopard 2s have seen a lot of action in Afghanistan battling Taliban insurgents for the Canadian 2A6Ms and Danish 2A5s, with improved mine detection and even floating safety seats. All of the mine-damaged vehicles were repaired and returned to action, although a Danish Leopard 2 crew member was fatally wounded by an IED strike in 2008. Field commanders complimented the tanks in return for their mobility and ability to deliver precise and timely fire support during significant combat actions in southern Afghanistan. Germany started modernizing its tank force in 2017, creating an even more robust Leopard 2A7V type that would fare better in a counterinsurgency setting. Berlin is currently under pressure from Ankara to upgrade the defense of its Leopard 2 tanks, especially given the ongoing delays to the locally made Altay tank. The Turkish military wants to add active protection systems, or APS, that can identify incoming missiles and their place of origin, jam them, or even shoot them down, in addition to more belly armor to protect against IEDs. A brigade of combat-proven M1 Abrams tanks will soon be equipped with Israeli Trophy APS, thanks to a new approval from the U.S. Army. In the meantime, the ADATS APS, created by Leopard 2 manufacturer Rheinmetall, has been presented. Its defensive countermeasure missiles are said to be less likely to injure friendly troops. However, relations between Germany and Turkey rapidly worsened, particularly after Erdogan launched a protracted crackdown on thousands of alleged conspirators following a botched military coup attempt in August 2016. A journalist for the publication Die Welt and a dual citizen of Germany and Turkey was detained by Turkish authorities in February 2017 under the pretext that he was a pro-Kurdish spy. Outrage at his detention was felt across Germany. Ankara explicitly stated that Yücel would be sent back to Germany if a Leopard 2 upgrade was approved. Berlin openly said that it would never consent to such a trade-off, but Foreign Minister Sigmar Gabriel quietly started taking steps to approve the upgrade to mend fences in the face of what appears to be a tank-based blackmail. Gabriel touted the agreement as a step to save the lives of Turkish soldiers against ISIS. Turkey began an attack against the Kurdish strongholds of Afrin and Manbij in northwest Syria in January 2018. On January 21st, a video of a Turkish Leopard 2 tank being hit by a Conquer's anti-tank missile was posted to YouTube by the Kurdish YPG. The missile may have impacted the Leopard 2's front armor, which is rated to be equivalent to 600 millimeters of rolled homogeneous armor on the 2A4. It is impossible to determine if the tank was knocked out. In any case, legislators from Merkel's right-wing Christian Democratic Union and left-wing German parties both expressed concern, with a member of the latter group claiming that the Turkish offensive violated international law. Leopard 2 upgrades were officially ruled out of the question on January 25th, according to the Merkel administration. Ankara sees the agreement as merely postponed, and cautious language from Berlin suggests it may revisit the agreement at a later date, when it would be more politically advantageous. The German government has been requested to supply contemporary Leopard 2 tanks to Ukraine because of this. The German administration appeared conflicted, as it has frequently in recent months when it came to providing arms to Ukraine. Because things can change swiftly on the battlefield, Kyiv needs backing right now. It's impossible to predict whether German tanks would continue to act as a deterrent to Russian aggressors in a few months. Friedegaitis says Putin believed that his alleged special operation would only last a few days, if not a few weeks, and would give him a resounding win. She claims that he could scarcely have better displayed to the world the military ineptitude and low morale of Russian troops. According to her, nuclear weapons are merely hyperbole, and the West need not be afraid of their deployment. China, Russia's most significant ally, would withdraw due to the negative economic effects.